In this example here, we need to find an ordered pair. So notice that next to the ordered pair, you see x and y. So basically, we need to find an x and y value that's a solution to this equation here. Keep in mind, a solution to an equation means that you're going to find two numbers that when you replace x and y and you simplify this using order of operations, you should get 6 as your answer. And there's actually a whole bunch of answers you can have that are going to be correct for this problem. And just in case you're wondering, if I were to graph this is called a linear equation. This is just an example, but if you were to graph a linear equation, you're going to get a straight line. It doesn't necessarily have to be this exact one, but this is just an example. It's a straight line, and to be a solution, visually, it just means this. A solution is a point on the line. And if it's not a solution, it's going to be a point that is not on the line. So we're trying to figure out points that are solutions or points that are on the line for that equation, but without looking at a graph. And the way we do that is what I'm going to show you now. So again, we need to find an x and y value. So we need an x and a y value to find a solution. And what you can do is you can make up any numbers you want. Because again, there's a whole bunch. So again, it's a point on the line. And notice, there's a whole bunch of points on this line. It's not just one. There's a whole bunch. So therefore, you can have more than one answer. And now what I need to do is basically just make up a number for one of the variables, either x or y. And my recommendation is also to pick numbers that are easy to evaluate. And one of the easiest numbers would be 0, because when you put a 0 in place of a variable, it eliminates that variable. And the only question is which one do I want to make 0? And it doesn't matter which one, but the goal is to try to pick a number that is easy to evaluate and pick the variable to be 0 that's going to be, make less work for you. But again, it doesn't really matter. But in this case, I know I'm going to make y 0 because since I have to multiply with 2, I want to eliminate that work. So I'm going to rewrite that here. So I'm going to put x minus 2y equals 6. And I'll show you both ways, depending on which one I replace. So you can see that the work that you have to do does change. But I'm going to make my y 0. So I'm going to put parentheses around this variable that I'm replacing, and I'm going to make it into a 0. So if I look at my point, just to organize it, my y is 0. And then I bring down the 6 here. And now I'm just going to go ahead. So now that I substituted my y value, now my job is to figure out, okay, what's the x value? So now I'm going to simplify. 2 times 0, we're going to get 0. And x minus nothing is just going to give me back x. And you can see here, x equals 6. So when I replace y with 0, my answer, my output, or my input is going to be 6. So what this is saying is that this point here is a solution to this equation here. So if you don't believe me, let's check. So I'm going to look at the point 6, 0. Again, don't forget, so it's x and y first. I'm going to rewrite the equation just so you can see what you're actually finding. So we get 6 here. I'm going to replace x and y with the numbers we got. So I got a 6 minus 2 and in parentheses 0 here. And I'm going to simplify this. 2 times 0 is 0. And you can see here, 6 minus 0 equals 6. That is true. And that's what it means to be a solution. It means that when you substitute your two numbers, in this case 6, 0, and you simplify it, you get an equation that's balanced. Because again, 6 minus 0 is 6. And 6 equals 6 is a balanced equation. And that's what it means to be a solution. But don't forget, visually, what you just found is that we're saying that point 6, 0 is on the line. If you were to graph this line, it would be a point on that line. And just let me show you the same work. Like if I were to do it differently, like let's say that I made the x value 0 instead. So this is going to give me another point on the line. But like I said, you can pick any numbers you want, but it will change the amount of work you have to do. So again, let's see how this looks. So x minus 2y equals 6. So in this case, I'm going to let x equal 0. And I'm going to copy the rest. So you can see here, 0 minus 2y. We got to simplify this now. That gives me negative 2y equals 6. And now I got to solve this. So I got to divide both sides by negative 2. And then we get y equals negative 3. So when my input is 0, my output is negative 3. So you can see we got another solution to this equation. So we're saying this is a point that'll be on that line. If we were to graph it, this point will land on that line. And again, so now notice we have one solution here. That's another solution. There's a whole bunch of different solutions you could get as answers. And again, it all depends on the numbers you pick. I could have picked number 5 for x if I wanted to, and then I would find the y value. But again, the numbers that are easiest to evaluate is always the zeros, because if you put 0 into the equation, that just eliminates a lot of the work that you have to do. But just keep that in mind. It doesn't matter what numbers you pick, but again, pick numbers that are easy, like 0, or you could pick a number 1, stuff that's easy to evaluate. And then, you can see here that by making y 0, I just had to simplify x minus 0. But by making x 0, I had to, use the division property of equality, which ended up being a little bit more work. So again, depending on which ones you make 0 is going to give you different work that you get. But again, even though the answers are different, they're still both solutions to that equation.